I tell you, it was 6 girls about to fight today. I never one had a conversation about that, and they started laughing. So you know,
It's like a.
What are your guys'?
There were some papers piled over there. You can grab them. And a Bible.
Okay, we're live. I'm gonna start with the roll call. Andrea, present. Sean.
Present.
Randall.
Here.
Eric. Toya. Here. Michael. Joyce. Here. Allison. Christina. Here. Camila. Here. Diana. Here. Corey. He should be on his way. Melanie. Present. Okay, we are in quorum. Does everybody have, the agenda and the minutes from the previous, meeting? If not, it should be on the end of the table. Just to go on the record, we do not have any submissions for public comment. So we're gonna move on to C, reports from the working groups. I know everyone was working on their budget, so if we can kind of just give something brief of what your budget was, that would be good, something quick and simple. Whoever wants to start first, you know.
I don't mind going for education and awareness. We spoke about how we would allocate about $8,000, and $3,000 of that would be for, marketing materials. And that can be anything from social media ads to printed materials or any outreach efforts that would broaden our visibility in the community. And the other $5,000 we would use to support our engagement with different experts in the field or bringing in speakers and facilitating different events, facilitating our attendance at different conferences or information meetings or forums or anything like that that might be going on to also help us educate ourselves a little bit more. Additionally, we created a spreadsheet of different community organizations that share similar goals with us so that we have a resource for collaboration and different partnerships on any future projects or events or anything like that that we would like to host in the future. And lastly, much of our conversation centered around increasing our connection with the youth in Albany and just recognizing the importance of their involvement with also helping us prevent violence within our community and just different efforts and strategies that we can use to help support the youth and our efforts in doing so.
Anybody have any questions? We'll move on to the next working group, our outreach working group.
I guess I'll go. I'll speak on behalf of the outreach group. Our budget, estimated is $15,000. We planned on using $2,000 each month. This budget will cover food, events, marketing materials such as flyers, t-shirts, to promote our initiative in the community and the logistics of introducing the events to the community in collaboration and engaging their support. And that's pretty much.
Any questions pertaining to that? No? Alrighty.
Yeah, that's a question. I know this is based off the second group. We were talking about doing t-shirts, so y'all talking about doing t-shirts, are we doing different ones? Can we collaborate?
I mean, we just said we was gonna have t-shirts for, I guess, the collective, the whole group and the community, so I don't know how that will work. or
So
how
what
it
was
will
the
work.
goal of, what was, when you guys were thinking t-shirts, what was the idea behind that?
It was pretty much,
To raise awareness of the task force, or?
definitely, as you said, we brought the visibility and the raise awareness, but also, when it comes back to the community members, it plants a seed.
Yeah, yeah.
You see, a t-shirt is a wearable message. So, you know, it had resonance. So I was curious, we working collaboratively or?
So I think that should be,
Yeah, I think since we have the most money, I think we should probably buy the t-shirts for the entire working groups
Mhm.
in the community, because we have the most within our cap.
I would suggest when we do the ones for the community, instead of the ones that we would have, maybe they should, instead of saying, you know, just say it's about prevention task force. Maybe we support the violence prevention task force for the community members.
Yeah.
and then our last group.
So we allocated $5,000 for the policy and resource group. That would consist of research software and materials, membership fees for different, programs or associations that would support our work, grant writing, to seek out additional funding to support task force initiatives, advisor consultant fees, and, miscellaneous expenses for unforeseen incidental, expenses that are associated with task force programs.
Alrighty, does anybody have any questions about that? Do we have any questions pertaining to the budget at all? No? We're good? Everyone's good on that? Okay. So we're gonna go,
What's the total, just
say that one more time.
what is the total that the task force would recommend you're requesting?
I think the total based on all three groups was 28,000. They tried to, I think we were approved for 25,000, but I still submitted it to see, you know, maybe they'll approve it, maybe they won't, but altogether with all three, it was 28,000.
Nice.
Do you know if they don't approve it for 28, do you think that they're going to decide what comes off, or does it come back to us for us to decide?
They're gonna group everyone's budget into 3 categories, like supplies, let me grab it. Let me see it all. Okay, so they're gonna just, categorize everyone, all of it combined into supplies and materials, contracted services, and miscellaneous. And then we can kind of decide what goes there. and things like that. We're gonna go into, unfinished business. I believe we stopped off at section 6. If I'm not mistaken, section 6,
Article 7, Section 6.
Article 6, right?
Article 7, Section 6.
Article 7, section 6.
Yeah.
They're on the minutes, left down here. I think they have
We got more.
So we look at
We got more.
that. Which one?
Oh, coming.
Are you in the bylaws, you know, bylaws?
Not the update. Thank you.
The bathroom for you.
Yep, yeah, I got you. My apologies for being late, clearly, little one. It all starts with the children, right? So I'm just gonna, continue with the bylaws from where we left off. So, like you just stated, so we're at Article 7, and we're at section number 6. For those of you who were not here, we approved the bylaws up to this point. So right now, based on last conversation, the recommendation was for us to go back, update everything, and then continue forward where we are now. So that's where we left off. So page 7 of 8, and it's the red sections.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we actually were at section 5, not section 6, because I had concern about that last part of section 5.
Yes, just before we go over that, throughout the entire document, you will see red updates. Those are the updates that we agreed on the last meeting. So those have already been motioned and approved already. But I just put the red marks in there so you all can know that these things have been approved. So now we're on section 5, so page 7. So I'm just gonna read the addition that we have here. So we said public comment should be submitted at least 15 days prior to the task force meeting, and that was something that we talked about at the last meeting.
So I think the public comment, I think, probably was a little misunderstood, so it's supposed to be 15 minutes prior to the task force meeting.
I was gonna say 15 days would be the task force meeting
Yeah.
before the meeting we talk about.
That was what I said, 15 minutes.
Gotcha. So the last sentence will read, public comment should be submitted at least 15 minutes prior to the task force meeting.
So it should be, the cutoff time is 5:30.
I'm assuming that from last time when we read this, everything else is standing as is. So does anybody want to make a motion to move forward with this section? So Article 7, Section 5, public comment. Okay, so Eric made a motion, anybody second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Any objection? Abstention? Motion carried. So the next section, we talked last time about order of business. So we talked about how the current order of business is something that we want to move forward with, but it was appropriate for us to add it to the bylaws. So similar to what you've seen here in other meetings that we've had since September, so we'll do roll call, public comment, any reports from working groups, old business, whatever that is, and then one of the standing items will be approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Any new business, additional public comment, miscellaneous business, and then adjournment. So if all of you all are okay with that, any questions about this section at all? Anything we want to add, change, modify? All right, do we have a motion to move forward with Article 7, Section 6, order of business?
The order of business acknowledges the working groups, but the bylaws themselves don't acknowledge the working groups.
I know, he said we can leave that in there. Because we can't put working groups in our bylaws, so.
So, sorry to cut you off, but should it just then say reports?
I don't know, do you think it should just say reports?
I think so, because, I feel like in that sense, if we say from working groups, we're acknowledging the working groups, so in that case, they should be written in the bylaws. But we can't have them, so.
Or even updates?
I think I like updates better.
Updates sound
Yeah, I think I like updates.
Yeah.
I think we can,
All right, so then for number 3, I will scratch that out and put updates as the order of business. So we roll call, public comment, updates, old business, new business, additional public comment, miscellaneous business, and adjournment.
So approval of minutes should be new business, not old business.
Say what?
Approval of minutes should be new, not old. We're approving of minutes.
Approval of minutes from the meeting before, so you think that should be new business?
It's the business we're doing today, approving the minutes. It's
Yes.
weird, but yeah.
Okay.
You have it under new business on your agenda too.
Okay.
I have a new business, you said?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, true, okay, I see what you mean.
Because it's a new motion that we're doing today,
Right.
as opposed to we're continuing what we're doing. I know it feels weird to be reviewing something as last time it was new business, but it's weird.
Okay.
Okay.
So then it will be roll call, public comment, updates, old business, new business, and then a section that's approval of minutes from previous meetings, additional public comments, miscellaneous business, and adjournment. Any other questions, comments, concerns, considerations? Anyone want to make a motion to move forward with Article 7, Section 6, order of business? Eric, anyone second? You just made a motion. Yeah, Eric made a motion before. Anyone second? All right. All in favor? Any opposition? Abstentions? Motion carries. The next one, the last page, Article 8, it talks about reports, is basically just saying that annually on or before April 1st, which we talked about the first meeting, that's the annual budget period to the common council regarding activities and performance, including recommendations of any to the mayor and the common council. Questions, comments, concerns about that section? Anyone want to make a motion to move forward with Article 8 reports? Alrighty, so we made the motion. Anyone want a second? We have a second up here. What's your name? Sorry. Joyce, second. All in favor? Any, opposition, abstention? The motion is carried. So the last article, which is Article 9,
I
amendment,
do have a question, I'm sorry, about Article 8.
it already got me. Article 9, amendments to bylaws, so this is basically saying that, the task force shall amend, only with approval, and it gives a certain period, which is 8 days, for voting members to, at the meeting of the task force. However, no amendment shall be adopted unless at least 5 days of written notice reciting the substance of the proposed amendment, that has been given to each voting member of the task force. Any questions about amendments?
Should that be 50% plus 1 instead of 8, because we pulled 8 out of everywhere else, didn't we?
That is correct.
So, shall we change that?
Yeah.
To reflect what, the way we talk about it everywhere else?
It's open to the public, right?
Yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can have a seat, over here. So the first public comment has already, there's a public comment at the end. So we're saying approval of 50% plus 1 of the voting members.
Just so it reflects the same language we've used throughout, related to reform.
Absolutely. All right, so we'll read the bylaws of the task force shall be amended only with the approval of 50% plus 1 of the voting members at a meeting of the task force, provided, however, that no amendment shall be adopted unless at least 5 days written notice reciting the substance of the proposed amendment has been given to each voting member of the task force. Any questions, comments, concerns, considerations of any? All right, anyone want to make a motion to approve the last article, Article 9, amendments to the bylaws?
So moved.
All righty, so we have a motion. Anyone want a second? All right, we have a second by Randall. All in favor? Any opposition? Abstentions? All right, motion carries. So with all of the modifications, then we will approve the full document of the bylaws. So I'll create, I'll update the bylaws, send it over, and then go from there.
Good job.
Yay!
Celebrate everything. That was worth celebrating.
Okay, so does everyone, all the task force members have the meeting, the minutes for the old meeting? From the meeting from October 15th? Yeah. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 15th? If you guys read it. I thought everyone still reading.
We'll give it a minute.
That's about right.
You good, Joyce?
I have a question. Can you make a motion as the coordinator?
I can't make a motion,
Yeah.
but I can't make a motion, but we haven't set any offices yet.
That's
So
right.
technically, nobody can, so
Okay.
we're going into that right after this.
Got it.
I guess we're all. So yes, approval for minutes,
I'll make a motion.
here we go.
Any seconds to approve our minutes?
All in favor?
Aye.
She has
Any
some
opposition?
questions.
Abstentions? Motion carried.
All right.
All right, going into, where we left off last week as well, we kind of, I started a little. Election of offices. Did everyone have a minute to think, read, get acquainted with the election of offices? Yes? I think I sent it out maybe 2 meetings ago, if I'm not mistaken.
And we had it in our notes from last week, or 2 weeks ago.
Does anybody volunteer? Would anybody like to volunteer for a specific officer?
I volunteer to be secretary, as long as no one else wants it. If someone really wants to do it, I will happily take that one.
I mean, I would ask you why, but I don't think you need to know why, because no one else wants it, but, okay, so,
Because I write it all down anyway, so I might as well. Clarify.
oh, is everybody in favor of Kim being the secretary of the Roberts District Task Force?
Yes.
It was like, got it, boom,
Okay.
boom.
Chair? Would anybody like to volunteer or nominate himself as chair? of the
I volunteer if no one else wants to do it.
Okay.
I'll volunteer if no one else wants to do it.
I have a quick question. Are we only nominating people that are a part of the community or people who are, want to be a part of the community? Or open to the public?
So we're nominating the individual that's, assigned to the task force.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
Is everyone in favor of Cord?
Yes.
Yes.
I have a follow-up question. So what is the process for assignment to the task force?
Say that one more time.
What is the process for assignment to the task force? How does that work?
I can definitely answer your questions a little bit after, just because we're not in the public comment period and we can be a little more personal, but if you stay a little after, I can answer your questions, okay? So Cord is chair, and then vice chair.
Acting question?
I didn't look for it.
The loser of the arm wrestling becomes the chair. Right. I volunteer as vice
Is everyone in agreement?
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Cord.
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 Cord, since you're gonna take over now, tell us into what you emailed me. Do you have a copy, or do you want me to give you mine?
Good answer.
All right. Yeah, so there were a few things that I thought would be beneficial for us to talk about, at this meeting. Well, we already talked about the budget, so that's that. But then I also wanted to see what you all thought about as far as obtaining data, violence-specific data. In the very first meeting, if you all recall, we were asking, what does the definition of violence look like? Because there's all type of violence. The first thing we talked about was gun violence, because, that's obviously, one of the biggest ones, but I think us as a task force, it will be important for us to know the continuum of violence and what we want to kind of take on. So I just wanted to open it up to see what your thoughts were about that specifically.
I would say any type of harm, that is traumatic. Domestic violence, sexual violence, bullying, just community violence, and,
And so,
stabbing, shooting, it's
absolutely.
wide.
And I think, you should do from Albany City Schools. So I think there's two streams based on what you just recommended, right? Some of that is police data, calls to police. Right? But some of that might never get to the police, and that would be any sort of data tracking that you all have that you'd be willing to share in any way about what happens within the school district, because that might get to some of that bullying that would never get reported to the police. Those are still formal mechanisms of getting data. I don't know in this area if we have a lot of community. There's like two ways you can get data: what gets reported to the police, and then what people don't report to the police. Because we do know that there's a lot of underreporting, especially in certain kinds of crime, domestic violence, and that type of assault specifically. But we might struggle to get some victim level data for that information, but I can see how far does that go? I can see what that is.
I did find, so I started a little research just to familiarize myself with some of what, speaking on, and just generally, like what was available. I was surprised at how much was available for free. And there are a lot of resources for some of these less formal, right, data streams, like where we could actually download the software that's free and map, like, as part of this test, where we could map occurrences, right, and see what's happening, and then combine that with police data, or school data, which I thought was really interesting. There was just a ton of things available to use, because this is such a huge topic nationwide. So that was really helpful for me. So maybe we can look into some of those things as well. Not that we want to start doing our own data research, but it could be something that's, that we use as a team, could be helpful.
As well as crime victims.
Right, and that's the thing. So you only get sometimes not even half the picture. So, for example, sexual violence and sexual victimization, the reporting rate on that is less than 50%. So if you want to understand the true level of what's happening, you can only get that from victim data. You might also be able to get some. Albany Med might have some data that would be different from police data, so they might go to Albany Med but not report to the police, but still have a SANE exam is what they're called, where all the evidence is collected, and the hospital will hold on to it, but the police still aren't called for it. Fantastic. Because they have nurses that are specifically trained to gather evidence like that, and then domestic violence, probably 50% reporting, if that, to police. And so that's why I think, there was a whole thing today with some violence data being reported out by the police department, and that's their statistics, but their statistics will never tell the whole story, because there's a large portion of certain populations who are never going to report their victimization. And that's been reflected. That's not an Albany thing, that's an everybody.
Just a small note on that.
Sure.
That's not quite accurate. The New York State now collects those kits entirely.
Gotcha.
So if you contact the Office of Victim Services, they might have some notes for you. And they might be able to break it down, not just by Albany Head, but also in St. Peters or wherever else a same nurse might work, which could be a little bit more than just.
Absolutely.
hospitals. Yeah.
Mhm.
So my recommendation is just to contact the Office of Victim Services.
Sounds good. I have a friend who's there. She was at Albany County, now she's there. So now I can use her.
I'll scratch that.
But I appreciate the thought. But I want to be reflective of the reality of victimization and what's going on for folks, that police data is not complete, regardless of what the police data is. People just don't report everything, absolutely just don't report everything.
I can tell you from my experience in Gulf Police Department before I retired from there.
Right.
We get, we will come across shots fired from going home.
Mhm.
Shell case, a whole slew of shell casings in an intersection, nobody called the police.
Right.
So clearly somebody was shooting a gun off, or multiple guns, and nobody called the police. And you can report that.
Well, see, in most cases, what's gonna be reported is bullets, but,
Correct.
right, so the shootings themselves, and then a lot of times it's difficult, I mean, because people say it was a shooting, then you find out it wasn't, and the people doesn't say anything, and it was 100 rounds, so it's definitely tricky, but, it's a tough nut to crack, but it can be cracked.
So I wanted to kind of go back to you suggesting us gathering data. That sounds like something that the education and awareness working group could kind of get together and gather their resources to get that data to kind of give us information on, what's going on. So I'm not sure if you wanted to kind of, give it to them to.
See what we could work on for the next meeting.
Right.
And then also, we have data and resources group also that can.
Right, yeah.
But I think just going back to the conversation, so there's all types of data that we can collect. I think us having a consensus here about what we want to look at, I think will be important for us.
But
I know we
also
can
for
say
the,
all violence and all data, but there's some data that's not out there, but then also there's some violence data that's not measurable, and then there's some that's clearly measurable. So, what do we want to do as a collective?
but I meant to say also for the, end of the year, not so year, report, we would need that data to show the common council, so whatever we collect needs to be recorded, needs to be, that's what I'm saying, like, if we're gonna collect data, are we gonna assign it to that working group? So when it's time for us to, write that report, and that's gonna be a section that you guys are gonna focus on, data and, I guess, like, over the months, if it declines or increases and things like that. So I'm just trying to see, kind of like hold everyone accountable to something. So when that report comes, it's like, okay, you guys are gonna take this section, this group is gonna take this section, and vice versa. So is that something we're gonna assign to them, or do you guys see that would be best fit for them?
What were you thinking? You were saying something. You were saying that the job, but what were you thinking?
For me, myself, I come across a lot of this information that wouldn't be written down. I mean, the fights at McDonald's, people that got stabbed, the domestic abuse situation that is teetering on something that could, have a tipping point. And so I would definitely bring that, we deal with this daily, every morning, my team brings forth all the information that they know about any kind of violence that took place in the community. Now, certain things raise to the level of us doing mediations, but all of them are important. So that's something I would definitely donate, that, I guess you say, unwritten data.
Right, I was gonna, I'm thinking too.
I also feel like, I don't want to speak for Ford, but the other two weird data people that are on the policy and resource committee would also be happy to help go through that. So it could be a combined work group, especially since, our big thing to get done was the policy, to start with the policies, but I see data as a resource too. So I feel like there's some overlap. So we could help obtain the data, and then education could help think about how we message and get that data out to people in a way that makes sense to them. That
I
work for
think that's
folks?
more impactful, than just being able to communicate why things are happening with solid data. I think that'll be more beneficial for our group.
Like unbiased.
Well, I know both of us are reviewing data.
Yeah.
That, like, we get it, not everybody's us, that's a good thing.
But to the point of the report, and I don't want to overstep here at all, but I found it a little overwhelming reading the last report, and I, amongst this group, like I sort of freaked out, like, oh my God, we have to write a report, we have to do all these things, and like homework. But there, I thought maybe if we establish like the outline within the next couple of weeks and say, and it can be flexible, right? It's gonna change as things come up and we learn and we make decisions, but maybe that will help us to like navigate within our work groups of like what we're trying. Yes, we need an overview on, you know, the national violence, you know, picture of violence, honing in on the city of Albany, what those findings were and how it fed into the areas that I think if we can get that sort of outline moving and start depositing those into the different work groups so that as we're working, we're completing components of the report.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Or we have it in mind. So it's not, that would make me, at least my nerdy self, feel better.
I agree, and I think that kind of goes into that conversation because data collection should be part of that outline, right?
Right? To say like, okay, this is how, this is a, or, you know, a template or something and say this is what is often used, what do we like, what don't we like, and how do we want to structure it.
I think to your point, so two types of data, primary data, secondary data. What Eric is talking about is primary data, which you get it from the actual people who's involved right then and there. So I think that that's valuable. But then when we talk about prevention, that will be a key because he's seeing it in real time, you know, and while he's out in the community and while others are in the community. So I think maybe figuring out a way to collect some of that data to where we collect some similar data to where we can aggregate some of that information and present it, but then definitely seeing where we are, you know, as Albany and seeing what the data suggests. I think both of those will be beneficial for different ways. And then I also think it will also promote programming, the direction that we'll go in, how we promote the programming, and then also having that connection and that conversation with individuals in the community who's actually being impacted like we talked about before. So, and then, sorry, what's your name? Toya, I know you had talked about some instances of having contact with people in the community and different experiences and stuff like that. So I feel like we have people who naturally have that contact and that communication to where they could bring stuff back to where we could kind of make informed decisions on how we move forward.
And let me say, Toya, great person. She's actually a hospital responder. So she deals with it, sometimes minutes after a shooting or stabbing is taking place. So she gives them a lot of great information and has to be a certain kind of person to get that kind of information.
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
Lastly, to add on to what you're saying, we're dealing with a system of victims and drivers. Right? So the more we can get into where the victimizations are taking place and the drivers of it, at the end of the day, to me, that's the goal. Because it's really only 10% of the community that's doing 90% of the things. And within that 10%, it's only 10% that are the true influences in the drivers. So I think it's about providing the community at large with alternatives to violence, and then really honing down on those individuals that, like I said, I don't see them as bad people. I see them as people that need help. And let's try to, you know, do that.
So it seemed like we got a few tasks for our next meeting or maybe the meeting afterwards. Probably, maybe all of us just taking a look at what data we could think of, find, or what have you, and then see how we could bring it all together. So whether it's the education and awareness and or the resources and data work groups, I think that between all of us, we can see how we can compile some of this data. What do y'all think? Anything from a library perspective, like databases or those type of things?
Yeah, we actually do keep data on incidents that happen in the libraries, whether it's verbal assault, physical assault, and just emergencies. So, yeah, I would be willing to share that data with the group. I mean, obviously, nothing personally identifying.
Yeah.
I think we definitely should do that, but I think Diana made a really good point developing an outline for our report. Because, you know, the blink of an eye is going to be April. We're going to be required to do it. We don't want to be scrambling. I agree. Does everyone agree about developing an outline for the report, for these suggestions to give to?
Yeah, I like that. I like it as a tool to like help keep us on track because it's, let's face it, it's not about the report. It's about the work that we're doing to address this issue. So I think an outline would actually help us just frame up, you know, the work.
Okay.
Yeah, that dictates.
I was really gonna say, yeah, it's not a healthy report, because how you can report when you didn't.
Well, it is about the report because this.
I mean, at
report-
some point it becomes about
I
the
mean,
report.
So the report is going to, we're asking for these things to be implemented, right? So that's what the report is for. The report is saying, hey, I feel like in the South End, it's a lot of violence, maybe we should put a community building there. That's what the report is for. We're giving them suggestions to help the violence. So the report is as important as our work, you know, because this is for the future. So I get what I mean, like the report is her, but the report is to get the common council to fund these ideas and these suggestions that we are creating, we're coming up with, you know, like $25,000 isn't gonna get us any, $25,000 is just for us to work. So I don't want you guys to think that budget is for, you know, that our report is for us to get the work that we want done in the community. That's what the report is ultimately for.
It might make sense too, to use some of the education and awareness money to, we want to generate support for the report. Right? Like, we want to have everyone behind us, so when this is submitted, it's so hyped that the common council is then pressured to say, yes, like, right? We've done such a good job in the community, getting people behind it and hearing people and hearing voices and putting together an actionable plan that maybe they haven't seen or maybe they haven't felt a part of. And now we're getting the community behind us. It's not just behind closed doors, like, oh, a report was submitted, nobody knows, you know, let's see if we can find it online 5 years later. Like, make it something that's publicly known. Make it something that everybody sees that we're distributing prior to the vote, prior to, like, hype it up, make it a big deal.
So like, what do you mean?
So that nobody, like, when I was thinking last time about PR, for example, why can't this group have our own sort of public dissemination of information, or does everything need to go through the common council? Are we allowed to share these things publicly? What's our form? We have
Well, we're
shared
publicly.
Right. No, but I'm saying, like, say we come up with our draft, are we allowed to share that with the community ahead of time? Are we
Yeah,
allowed
'cause
to-
whatever we do,
Right.
we have to do it publicly. So like when we go through our drafts, when we write anything, it's gonna be broadcast, so it has to be public. You know, if this room was big enough,
Yeah.
the public can come in and listen to us go step by step
Yeah.
with that draft. So everything is public.
I'm saying like a hype squad. I'm saying like, who is your, are you, maybe it's you, maybe it's Cord, maybe it's all of us, who's constantly bringing this to the attention of the community, hey, this is happening here, right? People are showing up, bringing more and more people here.
More so, I'm sorry.
You know, what's that?
That's more so for outreach, right?
Yeah, but you think that lands under there? I just think it should be a big part of it ongoing, because a lot of times I think people don't even know that these things are happening. If we can get everyone behind what it is we're trying to get approved, then the report has life, you know? Because it is the thing that we need approved, right? So it has to have heft, it has to be well thought out, it has to encompass and address the problem, but it has to have sway.
Well, maybe we need a social media platform, and then you can definitely engage the community that way.
Which is sort of, yeah, like, how do we,
So we already in
The
this
strategy, I think that movement is so that type of people though, right? We can have people out, inviting people to have these conversations, going out with these different groups and stuff like that. Like, it's gonna drum up support as we go through that process. I think it's gonna be hard to like do it now when we haven't done anything yet, we're just getting established, we're trying to figure out, find our footing. So I think the strategy should be involved, like mapping the city of Albany and making sure we touch every aspect of the city to get that information that we need. I think it's great that we're gonna look at, you know, the formal data that's out there, but I think what's more significant is making sure we're reaching these different pockets within the community and talking to the people and, you know, neighborhood associations and community groups and inviting them to come here, but we also can go to them to have these conversations and make sure that it's it's a well-rounded report and not just based off of that formal data.
Oh, no, 100% agree with that. 100%. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I just,
I think we're all on the same page. I think you're saying that you want them to have a collaborative approach to everything that we do, which I think we're all saying the same thing. I'm just thinking that, so for example, it kind of goes back to the very first day. My thought was, if we're just talking, we're venting, we're not making anything. But we have to know what's happening and what's out there. So for example, we talked to a few people around this table who knows the pocket of where to go and those type of things. But just thinking about Ramisha's standpoint and also some of the others that's around the table, when we talk about government, they want to know data and they want everything justified. Obviously, we know that, you know, the overarching goal is to reduce violence and to go out there and to be out there. But I think having a collection of both would be important. But then also, even if we go out in the community, and this is just my point of view, if we go out to the community and a person asks us, okay, well, how do we define violence? Are we all gonna be on the same page? If they say, what direction are we going in with prohibition? Are we all gonna be on the same page? I don't think so. So I think maybe having a starting point where we decide as a collective, like, this is what we wanna do right now, branch out, see what the community is saying, see what else that needs to come back, and then say, okay, like, let's transform it in this way. But I think we have to have a starting place or starting places, which I think we're all saying that, but you have to come up with something to move forward with.
I agree totally. I think we definitely need a script that we would all be able to get behind. You call it the 30-second pitch. It's not. Everybody who snugs does the 30-second pitch the same way. It goes into a 60 and 90, I'll talk an hour. But what happens is it makes it so that every conversation isn't a different one. We have an alignment, we have a uniformity, and that's how we get to the outcome. You're talking about. The outcome, there's several outcomes. The outcome of the report, the outcome of how we're going to affect the community, the outcome of whether the report is motion behind it, right? And so I think we can affect public sentiment based off the way we engage the community. If our community engagement and our strategies and our plans are strong enough and being implemented, we'll get the public sentiment, right? But it's person by person, it's neighborhood, it's block by block. And I think we need, like you said, we need that uniformity. Whether it's just 2 sentences, 3 sentences, that we speak to what the Violence Prevention Task Force is here to do. And then whatever conversations we have from there can give it up. That's our opinion every time somebody talks to us about it.
So I think, the how to define violence should go into the mission statement, you know? The mission statement that we had, it was just a uniform statement. So if we're gonna all be in uniform about how do we define violence, then maybe we should take a look at our mission statement and kind of reword that and tackle that first. So that should be the starting point, you know? I think the mission statement is in the bylaws, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes. But I think when it comes to how we define it, I think we also have to be able to back it. So, for example, we can't say it's all of these things, but then there's no way for us to back it up with any type of evidence support or anything like that. We could say that, you know, we want to make sure that people are emotionally safe, but what does that mean as far as us making progress as a prevention task force? So it's just those things is what we're talking about, and kind of what Cam was talking about also is that if it's hard to get data, it's hard to say, okay, are we really making a difference? Do we really know where to go and those type of things? So just a thought, I'm all for all types of violence, but just making sure that when we are out there, we all have a unified front and we all have to back up what we're saying. Because a lot of times people look at these type of groups and look at it as a joke because we make no progress because of that reason.
So I just want to say, in our outreach group, we all came up with, we're gonna go out and do like an introduction in this. And like meet the people where they at, meet their needs, like get questions, okay, hey, what are you struggling with? What do you need? And then collectively take that and come back to the group and see how we can support them so that they can be supported in that aspect of whatever it is that they're dealing with. So that's what we discussed in our outreach.
And all of that is really good, but what your partnerships, your collaborations are what you're gonna really need to make it work, right? Like Kamisha said, 28,000, 25,000 is not gonna get you where you want to be. You understand that? So like, your collaborations will get you there, because like, if Kamisha has a program that has $150,000, if she has one that has 100, you're pulling money from those collaborations to make things work for you. If they go out and find out that a household needs, their children don't have any boots, they don't have coats, they don't have all the essentials that they need, that's where you pull in the force of the collaborations to make it work. Like, SNUG may be able to help the family out, our program may be able to help the program out.
Can you tell everybody where you're from?
Oh, my name is Valerie Alexander. I'm sorry. I am the manager of the Gun Violence Prevention Program for Albany Community Land Trust. I also am a commissioner for the City of Albany on the Human Rights Commission. And so those partnerships are so important, right? And we have a partnership of like 20, about maybe 30 organizations right now, and to make things so far happen in the City of Albany, we pulled in all of those programs. It's a community organization meeting. It's no one organization's meeting. They're getting them, SNUG is there. It's a lot of people from SNUG there. Our group is there. It's groups from everywhere. We partner with the library. We hold those meetings at the library. Everybody's welcome. It's bringing information and getting information, right? Is to lift up everything that we're trying to be positive in the City of Albany, and that's what we're about. The other thing I wanted to say in regard to your report, your report will be important because it will be intertwined in an annual city report that will go to the commission, which goes to the county council. Okay, so it's important because in the end, your report we want to be a reflection of the needs that you found out that the community needs from you all. So it is important. While we know, I want to do all this paperwork, I just want to do what needs to be done. The paperwork is important. It's really important to monitor and keep track of exactly what you're doing, because that's what they're gonna want, right? Anytime somebody gives you a nickel, they want $12 for the report, you know? And doing it as you go along and keeping up with it, so you don't have to try to scramble and say, well, what happened 6 months ago? What happened 3 months ago? We do it on a weekly. We do it weekly. We keep up with everything. At the end of the week, we're preparing the notes, you know, so that we already have it. We have it. And then when we come together to do our report for Department of Criminal Justice, we just put it all into the report that they're asking for.
And I think that's where accountability comes in. So for example, we know folks who specialize and are experts in community, in reaching community. Great. And then there's the research and data folks who could ask questions to get data, those type of things, or put the report together, like you just said, you know, those type of things. So I think, you know, just coming together and seeing what we need and then putting it together and saying, okay, this is how we'll work together to get it done.
Like also, I'm sorry.
No.
Also, with the outreach, working groups, we also are going to start trying to go around and partner with some of the furniture stores to say like, okay, like, hey, if some of the families need beds or they need tables or dining room sets, then we'll be able to help them with the furniture stores to be able to give them a voucher to go in and get them something new for them and their families. And so that's something that we're gonna be working on in the outreach.
We've been seeing, I think it's annual payment that they paid from facilities, and then
What's happening?
I was saying the furniture bank, I know the furniture bank partners with a lot of organizations in the community. I'm not sure how they bill or like what they require, but I know it's some type of exchange, and then they, let's say if we partner with the furniture bank, right? We can put that in our budget that we pay them, I don't know, $5,000 every year, and we can give 25 families some type of furniture or, something like that. So I was just letting her know that the furniture bank can be a resource as well. She needs to call them and see if that's an option.
And there's a group called, I think it's Beds for Kids. They make beds and give them to the kids. So, it's a lot of things out there.
So we talked about data as a resource. I know at one point we talked about social media and those type of things. I'm thinking, what could we talk about here to have like a plan to move forward at the next meeting? So obviously data, but then what else? I know, obviously social media we talked about. Is there any other things that as a starting point that we could talk about, as a way to move forward with this?
I definitely think we need flyers because there's so many events that's going around. If we had flyers, like everybody's doing trunk or treats and haunted houses and all sorts of things. We have Thanksgiving baskets and things of that sort that's coming up, Christmas. So if we had flyers and we could be at these places and hand out flyers and say, hey, with the outreach task force, violence prevention task force, I think that would be great too. I think we need that. That's another way of letting people know we're out here. Per se. I think that.
We also talked about the 25,000. I think you may have brought it up, but if I'm not mistaken, that 25,000 is just the initial budget for this group, not the what we want to do community-wide and activity-wise, right? Okay.
So what we want to do community-wise, we would get that money after we submit the report and they issue that money to us. You get what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's almost like a business plan.
It's
like a business plan, part of it.
Yes.
It means we have to say, this is where we see the risk, this is what we propose to mitigate the risk, and this is usually the dollars allocated and the expected and measurable outcomes.
To add on to that, I also think that like the report can say, we recommend that the Albany Police Department put X amount of dollars into Y program. So you are not even saying that you guys want the cash, you're saying that you want to create a program within the police department or within neighborhood services, and it's gonna cost X amount of dollars. So like, if you have your initial budget for you guys, but in your recommendations, you could expressly say, we recommend that you create a program within neighborhood services that could cost $3 million a year.
I like that.
So is it safe to say that the 25,000 is going to be from now until what, the summertime? Or
January
winter?
1st. January 1st.
That's when the report
It
is.
starts on January.
We will get the money January 1st.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about, you talking about 25,000, you're talking about.
The 25,000.
Right, so that 25,000 starts January 1st up until we submit the report
Mhm.
for the budget.
Yes.
And then that's when they'll grant us whatever additional money. So that
I
25
think
is
you would be able to
now
answer that better.
Yes, so the way that it works is, the mayor submits her proposed budget every year in October. And then the council meets with all the commissioners from all the departments. They justify why they asked for maybe 5 additional employees and stuff like that. And then the council will take all of that information and maybe make additions or make changes. And like, for example, whatever money you guys requested and whatever they're gonna grant you will be an additional add in the budget that takes effect on January 1st. So then you'll get, like, not cash, but you'll basically be like, here, you have this amount of money to spend. Your report, say, gets issued at the beginning of July or whatever it might be, but you still only have $25,000 to spend until the next fiscal year. But you can advise that we add additional money in our budget to do other stuff outside of your group, but they're recommendations that came out of this expert right here. Does that make sense?
So if we did all of our work and we used all of our resources, and we came up and said that mentorship through sports is extremely important, we'd like to see a $10,000 increase for the police athletic league. That wouldn't come out of our money. That would be a request from the mayor's office that the mayor find $10,000 that wasn't ours. That would go to the police athletic league. Does that make sense? So then we're not stuck, like all of violence prevention in the city of Albany isn't
Your money should
$25,000.
be spent on things like flyers, like food, like, getting a tabletop if you want a table at an event, if you want to rent out a space for that, which you shouldn't, because we will give you space. If you want to do it, then we'll do that for free. But your money is basically a budget line for you guys to spend to get yourselves resources to do things. If you want to recommend that the city put extra money into the snow program, that shouldn't come out of your budget. You're requesting us to do that and recommending that we do that because it would make sense. Because you guys are the experts, you did this research, you found that an additional $10,000 for snow would help pay for an additional whatever. Does that make sense?
And that's what goes in our report.
Yes.
Any other ideas before we move on
Before we move on,
No.
what?
to the next business item? Unless you have more things.
Well, we're still under new business? What are we?
Yeah, we're starting to do this.
We're in a miscellaneous.
Relax, relax.
Hold on.
If she wanna report,
Hold on, everybody. So we're under miscellaneous business now.
Okay.
One of the two, you had something, you asked where we were, so.
I wanted to ask if this group would be amenable to hearing from colleagues from other violence prevention task forces in other cities. Because Ramisha has a contact, and the Education Awareness Working Group was interested in contacting another task force. And maybe we can learn from them what kinds of data is compelling, whether it be, primary or secondary, and just like how to build a compelling case to get support for this kind of program.
Yeah, so I'll touch on that. So I think during you guys' working group, I suggested that originally I wanted the education and the policy and resource committee to meet with him, but I think it would be beneficial for everyone to meet with him. His name is Victor Sanders. They're from Rochester. They're from Rochester. They have a violence prevention program within the city of Albany. So he's the advisor to the mayor in Rochester.
Which is a hot mess, right? It's a hot.
I'm sorry, I would not.
So do you know of them?
I'm just saying, I know Rochester culture, and
It's bad.
and I just don't know that we want to.
So I think
Like, city government,
we get that policy.
Yeah. I'm with the neighborhood and community service department, and that was one of the first things when I came on as a neighborhood specialist. We went to Rochester because we wanted to see what it was like to be in Rochester. We wanted to be able to experience that. And we also talked to a lot of people who were able to see, I think, who was with us? You was with us as well.
Yeah, Pastor Mike, all of us went.
I mean, knowing that culture can also give you an insight on what we see in the city of Albany, the culture here. You can go to New York City, you can go to Florida, you can see so many different cultures of violence that when you come back here, you may be like, oh, this isn't that, outrageous. This is something that we actually can work towards, making an effort in the city. But it's also good to learn from other places.
Yeah, I wanted to
What
ask.
to do and what not to do.
I wanted to ask Ramisha.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I wanted to ask you, what did you have in mind when you mentioned Victor Sanders? Does he have special knowledge that?
I think he does.
I do know him, yeah. Is he a clergy? Is he with the clergy? He worked for the city, and he's all, violence prevention, and I know he does great trainings and all of that, but I used to work in Rochester city government and just knowing how it works. That's the reason for my skepticism and leaning on good for advice, because they don't even, collaborate amongst themselves.
So I don't think I was looking in his direction to lean on for advice. I was looking in his direction to just know more about what they're doing, and maybe it can work, maybe it can't work, and we'll put that in a report, We reached out to Violence Prevention Task Force in Rochester, New York, and they are utilizing these and we feel like this would be beneficial for here, and it's like something, you know, just so we can show that we outsource certain things, you know what I mean? And I know I do have a direct line of communication with him.
Finish your thought, but that, I would also say that, one of the leading scholars on violence prevention is at the University of Albany. And when he and I were talking the other day, is very interested in how he can help this group.
Okay.
He could, based on his research, his active participation in St. Louis, which obviously is not New York State, but as again, some of you say, okay, Rochester looks like this, St. Louis looks like this. He also knows some of the research of other places. And I think he would be happy to come in to consult along with anybody else that you would recommend.
What's his name?
Matt Vogel.
Matt
Vogel.
I'm glad all this is being said because, you know, we really don't want to approach the streets thinking that we got all the answers in this room. It's definitely about surveying the community, getting their aspect, and having not insights to the culture of violence. The mayor had mentioned a program called ROCA,
Right, I told you guys about that. I think it's in Baltimore.
Massachusetts,
Okay, yep, in Boston.
right? So I studied them. Actually, I was first to become a violence interrupter in Boston. They program this, it's been around for a long time. Nonetheless, ROCA is about basically 7 skill sets. Be present, label your feelings, move it, act on your values, stick with it, flex your thinking, and solve it. It has a lot to do with cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not just about somebody doing something, it's about why they did it. It's about the neuroplasticity that's involved. It's about the psychological effects of trauma on the brain. It's about psychological effects of racism, psychological effects of poverty. I think we gotta carry these elements into our conversation.
I
Do
agree.
you have a contact in Boston that we might also be able to talk to? If we're thinking about.
Well, I got that from the mayor.
I was gonna say, is
yeah.
that one of the documents?
Yeah, that's one that you guys, and I also got to outsource to different cities from the mayor directly, so that's why I suggested that.
I might be able to find somebody who knows somebody in Boston.
I think she said that she had a contact that she could kind of lead to that person,
Do you
so
want
we
to get
can.
a resource for you guys? The mayor's party, you guys contact the mayors, which means that she meets all the time with mayors across the country. So like if you guys, in your own research, say, oh, there's something going on in Milwaukee, or some random ass town in who knows where, let us know because we would be happy to use the contacts that we have to get you guys who you need to talk to. But yeah, the Boston connection is definitely.
Okay. So we had a lot of conversations about our ideas. So talking about the next meeting, who do we want to come to this next meeting? Because I'm thinking.
So before we get there, I kind of wanted to finish up on what Andrea was saying, and I wanted to know if is that something that you guys are interested in? Not him training us, but kind of talking to him, getting insight from him, just having an exchange of words basically with them to see, you know, what's going on with their program. I believe their program, they stemmed from a violence prevention task force, and they kind of evolved into a program within the city of Albany, you know, so that or not, they're doing some type of something, you know, where they're being recognized, where they're getting funding, they're getting money, they're evolving, et cetera. So that's why that came to mind, but I don't know if you guys are interested in that.
We're also connected with the task force in New York City out in the mayor's office with Gilmore Rose, Rochester, because Gilmore Rose was the one that actually did the task force in Rochester.
And he might have some.
And who is this person?
His name is Victor T. Sanders.
So does anyone want to make a motion to have that person to come in the next time?
So about that, he isn't available after 5:30. It would be a Zoom conversation, a Zoom meeting, and it would be during the day. And I wanted to know, he sent me some dates and some times, and I wanted to know, I know everyone has other things going on, but can anyone attend this meeting? I can read out the dates and times to see if you guys can jot it down and get back to me.
Or it might be easier if you just email the dates.
Okay, I'll email them.
That could go to the entire task force because not everyone's here.
Okay, so.
And then they can also see if they'll let us report it, which you might not because we're talking about government and stuff. So you might be like, I don't really want this on a recording, but we can act.
Nice, so, okay. So I'll email that.
Survey Monkey.
And you said who?
Who's the
Survey.
one to come?
Select days,
Yeah.
so that you have,
I would say just welcome.
what you got, one,
What, oh, the other one's better.
what is it called? Is there something
Who's the
different?
last meeting?
Those are better. Thank you.
They're beautiful.
Yes,
Oh.
yeah.
I have things.
I'm just thinking of action items that we can move forward.
Sure.
Yeah, that's why specifically made, that's why I said, as opposed to general survey.
What would be our goal for getting him, like, what are we talking about with him?
Initiative, and what we trying to do.
I think, yeah, data collection, like how to go about data collection or compile data collection, like what, it would be interesting to see if they have a report that we could look at.
So they do, and I get sent that every Wednesday, and I can bring that in, it's the same report that the police department gets sent, I get sent. And I did just get approval that I can share with you guys, so that's what I was gonna bring to the next meeting, that collection, data collection. I'm not sure how far back you wanna go with the data
As
collection.
far back as you can go.
No,
I can go years and years and years.
well then, I would go to the DCJS website and get it, because, there's a point at which you start
How far back
losing.
did you go?
It's weekly,
Yeah,
we
2018, yeah, I was,
I was
Well,
gonna
that's
say-
different than the DCJS data.
Yeah.
So,
the 2018, that's when the line spiked up.
yeah, what I would recommend as far as data collection, the DCJS website is fantastic, and you can get year-over-year data for almost any type of crime, for any of the given jurisdictions and all of them. So I use this resource when I was in the governor's office all the time. Like, I didn't even call them and say, I need this data, I just wanted to get it. But if you're looking for all these specific incidents that are weekly, I mean, I think sending the weekly reports to this group would be great. I don't know that historical context for a weekly report is gonna do much.
Right, I agree.
But they might have historical context for monthly reports. So it's like, you'll see the spike that happens in the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was asking you about, how can we get that information when it's ongoing? With the crimes, the stuff that's happening, how do we get, other than social media or hearing it from somebody, how do we?
So by wards, yeah, so I get them, they send them to my wards, weekly. So like I said, I'm welcome, I can share it with you guys, email it to you guys, you can.
I mean, to your point, I don't think that us having it every week over years. I don't think
That's why I
Yeah, but I do think having monthly data going back some time, but I think it's beneficial maybe the last few months, seeing what the data looks like, because that will also drive the direction of where we are, what we're doing, like those type of things.
Particularly if it's coded with location, right? So
Right.
you're
So
saying more
it's,
data.
yeah, my ward.
Right,
I
and
think
so-
I printed back until, May, so is that okay to bring in?
To start, and then we know what we're looking at. And then we
Okay.
could say, hey, actually, we want further back than that, or no, this is super overwhelming, we're good with 6 months, like, let's start with something, and then if we want this year, if we want to add
I can
more.
look into getting the whole year,
I can
That's
probably,
crucial, because you're going into the holidays, you know what happens when the holidays come, right? It's like going from the winter, spring to the summer, right? So that'd be great.
we call it seasonal, well, we don't call it, it's seasonal affect disorder, right? Sad, once you start, sun goes, the holidays come, you get into, you find some kind of fight. But what I can definitely do is give you some of that information, because every morning we compare the shootings of this particular month to what the month was last year,
Yeah,
every day. So we can understand the prices, the same goes for math. Those are definitely things that we can, the teaching aspect,
Okay.
bring to the table.
but I think you were also asking what we should ask the, Victor, was that part of what you were saying?
I was just, if you guys are interested, yes, we can set it up. I don't know if you guys wanna,
I
create
think I want to know
something.
where he's getting, how he got things funded, where he would look for, were they private, public, non, like, where was funding coming from for the work that they were doing? Because I think that regardless of how well they do or do not do with their violence prevention, where they manage to get money would be a very useful thing to know.
I agree, 100%.
What have they done that works?
Right.
What do they consider that they've done that works? So.
And what do they have, and what do they, right, what do they have to implement that is not working, what do they see, so I think that could be a starting point, for us to kind of get some type of insight. from another city, and then we can look into probably, possibly reaching out to the mayor in, Boston, right? That's where it's
Yeah.
from, and then so on and so forth, to kind of, get something to lean on.
So it seems like we have a couple of different, actually, we have the data piece, but then I think we all talked about different folks, organizations that we want to see come here. So maybe we can get a list going, to see how we want to, how we want to organize that. And then I think we have a list of questions that we want to ask, based on best practices, based on whatever we want to know. So maybe we can just develop a running list of those different things. So data, organizations, that any folks or communities that we want to collaborate with, and then also questions that we want to answer based on, whatever we want to know, best practice, or how we could even, adopt some of the practices that we see others doing.
I also wanted to, before we, adjourn, go to Valerie's point where, she said that her program, kind of keeps track of, because we're past the pilot at this point, so we're really doing work where whatever we do from this point on should be put in the report. I wanted to see what that structure would look like for us to, cause I don't want it to be based on the minutes, because the minutes is very bland.
Right.
How should we create that structure with all the information that we're saying, we're getting, how are we recording that? To keep it on file, so when that report does come in, what is it, April 1st, so by, I don't know when we should start working on it, maybe in February, when we get to February, that date, we can kind of put it all together so we're not scrambling. It's a lot of us, so how are we structuring that piece to recording everything that we're doing going from here?
Does the city have the ability to make a shared folder? SharePoint, OneDrive, encrypted? Probably,
I don't know.
almost certainly.
I can add.
Right, and so then we would all have access to this folder, we can put information in there, it's in a repository, so we can pull
We're
it
not
out.
city employees, so I don't think we'd be able to have access.
I can give access to my university ones to non-university folks. So maybe it's a question.
It's a city SharePoint, and none of us have city addresses.
I think that's something
Even if one of you guys make it and make it accessible to all of us, then.
But I think it might be better for.
I can add, I computer.
I'm
I'm
also
definitely
happy
gonna
to
add.
follow up with you on that one,
And how are we gonna go by, I just don't want it to be 100 different things in this folder,
Right.
because it's back to square one, we're still scrambling, I don't know if we wanted to kind of, I know in your working group, you guys designated, I don't want to say chair, but a lead for that group. Are we giving it to that person of the lead? So for example, if we're giving data collection to the education and awareness group, every task force meeting or every working group, well, whenever you guys submit that report, they're gonna be required to put their data collection in that folder. Like, how are we holding people accountable for putting things in the folder and keeping up with the work?
I think one of the things that we do in the research and data group is we collectively decide as a group, do we want to move forward with this? Yes, and then we just do it. So maybe based on agreement, not necessarily vote because we can't.
Right,
But, just agreement, like as a consensus, this is what we want to submit in there, and that's pretty much it. And then I think that will also be a good way to submit stuff to you as a coordinator. So any updates, any type of thing that we write up, it could just be submitted to there, and we will always have it. But I do think it being something being organized by you, because anything that happens to any of us, and then we'll lose whatever we come up with, so.
Okay. I can definitely check in, and if not, with come up with a plan B. Do we have anything else on?
Nope, we do not have anything else on the agenda. So
Before we adjourn, I wanted to just develop some agenda items for next week, just so we all can be together with it. I'm sorry, for
Okay.
next, so, like I did say, the working groups were supposed to be this Thursday, I know it's Halloween, so that's gonna be canceled. I know a lot of people have small children, so that's gonna be canceled. Our next group is November 12th, if I'm not mistaken, right, November 12th.
That sounds about right.
So new agenda items for November 12th, what would we like our talking points to be? So our old business is completely finished, we have no old business, so what is our new business on the business of?
So this is gonna be locking down what our strategy is gonna be for acquiring the data and further keeping of, you know, our activities that will be ultimately.
I think the things that you have listed also, you know, we wanted to make that one on the list of collaborators. I think us having, you know, deciding who we want to start with first, second, or seeing how many folks we want to have come to each one of these meetings. I think we should have enough to even strategize throughout the rest of the year. And then any questions that we want to ask and then we'll bring them together and then, you know, just.
So create talking points, right now.
Can we submit those questions to you?
We're doing it all together, right? We're gonna do those talking points all together, just so we don't have 50 million questions, but we don't have to merge our questions.
So we're replying, how are they coming out? Like, how are we gonna collect them? Are we gonna bring them to the next meeting? Bring them to the next meeting, okay.
Yeah, discuss that at the next meeting.
Okay.
So based on the whole defining how we define violence and looking at data, so do we think that should be another talking point at our next meeting?
I agree, yeah.
I just want to make sure.
When you said that you're gonna use the mission statement, or is that not something?
I'm just saying, like, should we implement the definition, how we define violence in our mission statement? Because we kind of went through everything else, and I think that's something that we didn't.
I think that we should discuss it next meeting, but I think the task force defining violence without more public commentary would be missing an opportunity. So I think before we worry about having to alter our bylaws, which is a process, we should talk about what our definition is and then take that to the community and say, does this reflect what you think of when you think of violence? Because it's not just about our opinions on what it is. Am I? Okay.
And that's a question that, I mean, you may or may not come up with the greatest answer for that, but the mission statement is definitely on the money.
Yeah.
This is something we can bring to they will want to know what you're doing. What are y'all doing? What's going on here? Maybe disseminate it just a little bit, but I think this is spot on. People want to hear that. They want to hear somebody ready to develop, implement, value, they want to hear.
I think there's a strong case for keeping the word violence, like just using the word violence, because it means something different to everyone, and it's inclusive in and of itself. For you, violence might be bullying, for another person, it might be sexual violence, for another person, it might be violence they've seen.
Right.
And then to your point, so when we talk about data, we talk about the seasons and stuff like that, we may have to shift. So we may see gun violence skyrocket and have to focus our efforts on just that for right now. And then we might have to focus something else in the winter time. So I think that keeping violence, I agree, overarching, and then just taking it as we take it. But, us knowing that these are our limitations, if there is any limitations, but saying, if there are any limitations, and then just going from there, I definitely agree with
And
that.
I think it's gonna be a good question for the community, like, when we talk about violence, what comes to mind for them?
Absolutely.
Sometimes with violence, all types of violence, I worked at Office of Victim Services and Criminal Justice for 42 years. Sometimes you gotta pivot, because you got a lot of this going on over here, and next week you have a lot of this going on, something different going on, So it's about staying focused as to what's going on in the community around you and what you're seeing on the news, right? It could be so many different things. I think about a month, maybe a couple of months ago, where they were like, people were saying all these kids was coming up missing, right? But now you don't hear anything about that really, like kids getting snatched off the streets and people at bus stops getting taken, but you don't hear that as much. So things change, and it depends on,
Exactly.
yeah.
That's starting to happen.
Yeah, Yeah, what's starting to happen, because people mimic what other people do. It's terrible, but that's what happens. You get people that mimic something that one person did. And, so you want to just really just be ready. I think all violence prevention programs, just need to be ready to work together and come together when things happen. And, the more people you see out there in the force, like we partner with SNUG all the time, right? So when SNUG is out there, they're out there in a big group, but then there's all these other groups that come out to partner with SNUG. And people notice that we're all out there because you didn't come alone by yourself in one group, you know what I mean? Albany is very hard to move people. It always been like that. I don't know because the capital is, and it's so political. I really don't know what the issue is in the city of Albany, but it's very hard to meet people, right? And people are not trusting in the city of Albany. They don't trust because of the politics. They don't trust people in high positions. You know, you gotta really work extra, to me, you gotta work extra hard in Albany for the trust because people feel like they've been wronged for so long. You know, just anything has been said. So we gotta work on changing that, right? Like if you got an organization, be true to your word so people can understand that they can trust you, right? That's all I want.
That's the main reason why I've been so adamant about how do we as a collective, what is our message? Because how do we start? That's what the community's gonna see. And I know that we individually have our individual respect in the community, but as a task force, I mean, we have to come correct for, you know?
And
So.
and the community is really watching. You know, we did a lot of summits at the library at 161 Washington Avenue when our program first started, and we did youth, we did people between the ages of like 24 to 40. We even had stuff with seniors. And everybody tells a different story of what they're looking for in community organizations, right? And the youth one time said something very important. This young man said, you guys are looking for something from us that you don't do yourself. So Pastor Mike said to him, what do you mean? He said, you want us to get along. You don't want us to argue. You don't want us to fight. You want us to respect each other when everybody above us doesn't do that, right? He actually said from the White House, he said the city don't get along with the state. He said the county council don't get along with the mayor. He said, I see it every day. And when he said that, it spoke violence because he was only 18 years old. He's in his last year of school. So it's spoke violence. So he said, even when you're talking to one another, you're talking so loud, nobody's paying attention, you know? So one of the things that, you know, is important is how do we talk to one another? Because even though we think nobody's looking at us, they're looking at you. They're looking at what you say. They're looking at how you conduct yourself. They're looking at how we treat one another. You know, and it's very important that if we're looking to change things in the city where we live at, we have to work on ourselves and work united, right? We have to work united, and that means in our group and outside of our group.
Absolutely. Any last minute, I know that this is not on this particular agenda, but I know we just voted for the bylaw. Do we want to have a last public comment before we adjourn?
Yeah, we can.
So this is the last public comment. I know you asked about it earlier. Is this something that you want to mention or something?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Everything. But if I go into my own spiel, I'll introduce myself. My name is Specialist Suhaim Bukoden. I'm the New York National Guard service member. Before I joined the Army, I was a citizen. Many activists, people already know me from the streets. So my wife and I, in 2018, we did a grassroots, community innovator. We got to the people, but we didn't work at. And one of the tools that we used was our art book. So I'm a visual artist, performing artist, and we use the arts to reach the people. And that's how we got approached in the world of grassroots. And I kind of think this kind of approach is very important. So, one of the points that was mentioned was how are we going to get community buy-in? Community buy-in is very important because that's how we are going to be able to come up with a way that's very impactful. Mainly because, especially because this is a new task force, we don't want the community to look at us as a task force as outsiders. We want the community to look at the task force as part of them. But how do we do that? The only way we do that is by meeting them where they're at and by also getting involvement from the people that's also there